Hi, everyone. This is Ruth Theresa with One Inspiring Woman. And today we are kind of talking about relationships and kind of the energy in relationships and kind of, I definitely want your opinion. I want your side. I want you to kind of give me your opinion about what we're talking about. We're going to be talking about like 5 pillars of kind of like what I think are the most important things to understand. And then we're going to be talking about some other things that are all about the energy of it and that sort of thing. So we're going to talk as much as we possibly can. So on YouTube, Facebook, and I guess Twitter this week, I am going to start the advertising because I've got a special, I've got a very special meditation coming up the beginning of June. And so I'm going to do that and then we will start talking. Okay, so let's get into all of this. Let me know that you've joined in, and I'm also going to be talking like angel cards a little bit, kind of hopefully about our abilities as well. So to me, kind of like the key 5 things to kind of like deal with in a relationship. And I saw a video today and it kind of like really made me think about it. These are kind of like things to kind of keep in mind if your relationship is already pretty good. I will tell you on any given month, I deal with a lot of people going through different, hey, Christina, a lot of people going through divorce at different stages. And so it's one of those, I also deal with a lot of people. Hey, Miss Kathy. Hello, Miss Soul. I think this one's kind of like an interesting one, but we're going to talk about not only the pillars of relationships, but kind of like the psychic side of that. So if you have any like not necessarily personal psychic questions, but psychic questions like dealing with all of these, and this could be any relationship. This could be a relationship with a husband, wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, or just like the people that are the key people with you. So kind of like these are my like 5, like you have to have this to build everything else. So my first one is communication. I think communication is probably the most important thing, but I will tell you that kind of it's also sometimes like the hardest thing we deal with is because a lot of times when we are communicating, especially when we're in a relationship, when we're getting into a relationship, we're always like, whenever they talk, we're like, oh, let me just listen. Let me hear your story. Let me hear about the first time you played baseball, or the first time you played basketball, or the first time you did this, or whatever else. And we're just kind of like enthralled and hearing everything about the person. So this is kind of like when we get into more into the relationship. I will tell you what we really have to do is clearly communicate our desires. What do we want in our relationship? Where do we want to go in our relationship? How do we want things to work out in our relationship? The next one is our requirements. What do you actually require in a relationship? What is that you really, 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 truly require in a relationship? And that kind of even goes into what you expect to happen. There are a lot of people with different personalities and different things that kind of come together. And also kind of like we communicate usually the way we were taught as a child. If we had parents that kind of didn't really explain things, then we don't really explain things to others unless we're overcompensating for it. And so that's kind of like, oh, now we're communicating, but we're like over communicating. I get this one a lot. Because when I was a child, I didn't feel like I could ask questions or get my questions answered. And so when I had kids, I'm thinking in my head, like, I'm going to answer every one of their questions. So sometimes my kids will ask me a question, and then they're like, okay, Mom, stop. Because I'm over explaining. So it depends on how you felt about it. So I could have gone into like my parents and not really explained a lot, or you overcompensate like I did. So that's kind of like, yay. Let's see. I will tell you that great communication is like one of the biggest pillars that we deal with. And clearly communicating with others can build like happy relationships, relationships where we feel things, where we're kind of connected to the other person. So that's kind of like the yes, we finally got it. We've kind of got this one. Probably the next one is most people don't do this one very well, but really setting healthy boundaries. Many people start setting boundaries and they kind of feel like, well, this is my relationship and I should trust them and I should do this and that sort of thing. Hi, Maya. Does that make sense? Like they're like, this is my person. This is the one I'm meant to be with. And they kind of like let all those boundaries go. And at the beginning of the relationship, and then when you get into a relationship, it kind of goes south a lot of times because it's like you've had no boundaries at all. And then all of a sudden you're setting boundaries and they're like, wait, back up, where do we get wrong with this? And I will tell you, I find this issue more than anything else with clairsensitives. Clairsensitives really kind of bring in some really heavy energy. And they like, to me, it's like we're always protecting ourselves. And then, but when we're around that special person, like, oh my gosh, this is the person that loves me. And this is the person that does this. And we kind of like, just like, I don't want to hold these boundaries anymore. So we kind of and like drop it all. And then we're kind of upset because they're not holding any boundaries and they're not, I'm saying like whenever we're kind of like, well, I thought this was our boundary. This is kind of where we're going. Or we'll say something to them in private and then they'll say it to someone else. And it's like, wait a minute. I thought we were supposed to have some boundaries here. And it's because we didn't set any boundaries at the beginning. We kind of like have issues with that. So I get that more with clairsensitives than anything else. Clairsensitives, we really, really, really are bad with this one. I will tell you, kind of the next one is trust. And I often tell people you have to kind of start trusting early in your relationship, but it can also be a downfall. If you're in a relationship with someone who's like a narcissistic or something like that, or someone who's not a really good person, they're going to take that trust that you give to them and they're going to modify it and they're going to squish it and turn it around and kind of like fight you with it later on. So it's kind of like, that's kind of one of those really hard ones. So you have to give the trust, but you also have to kind of set some boundaries with that as well. I know it's kind of like, but I will tell you, most relationships have a huge amount of double-sided mutual trust kind of between the partners. Like, I'm going to trust you and you're going to trust me. And it also takes time to build that trust. I will kind of tell you one of the secrets that I have found is when you start a relationship with a narcissistic, usually they want to hear like as you kind of start in the relationship, they will ask you like, how was your last relationship? How was the previous one before that? And they start asking these things and you're kind of like, wow, they really want to know about me. And that's where you kind of get like the a little bit crazy energy. And then I will tell you, usually they'll start asking you questions really kind of too soon almost, most of the time, of kind of like, tell me your biggest secret that you have. Tell me your biggest lie that you've ever told. Tell me this, tell me that. And that's kind of like crazy. Kathy is saying, yes, that's why it's hard for me to trust now. So trust is something that it's almost like, the best way to put it, it's like feeding a baby. It's like feeding a baby. So you want to give them a little bite and then see how they do with that. And then a little bite and see how they do with that. So you're going to give your trust, but you're only going to give it in like one area at one time. And then we're going to see how they do with that. So it's not like, here's my trust and like just fling it at them. Like, here you go. Everything is here. So that's where you kind of have to build trust over time. And if someone starts out in kind of like a new relationship, even if it's a friendship relationship or it's a possible, new life partner or something like that. Hi, Miss Shelley. Kind of the interesting part is making sure that you are getting the answers back and that you're staying in balance with that person. If they're asking you like, what is your deepest, darkest secret that you've ever had in your life? And you answer something and then they answer yours, like you ask them the same question and like your answer is like this truthful and theirs is this truthful, there's something wrong with that. So that's why I'm saying, like, you can say, well, what I feel comfortable with telling you at this time is this one. And then where does that balance out with them? Does that make sense? So it's kind of like following that balance energy and not just like, here, let me tell you every secret I've ever had, that sort of thing. So that just kind of Hello, Miss Jade. That is a really good one to kind of keep that trust going a little bit at a time. Um, the next one I will say is respect. I think a lot of people don't really understand respect too well, because a lot of times, like, people will tell me, like, well, my wife doesn't respect me, or my husband doesn't respect me, or my whatever it is, my boss doesn't respect me. But it's one of those, you also have to kind of like, kind of really, it's like there should be a mutual respect in every relationship. And it's almost kind of like weird to say that, but it's true. But a lot of times people want respect, but they don't want to give respect. Like, they want to get it without ever having to give respect. And it's like, to me, it's respect is something that you earn, and it takes time to get there. Kind of like the trust. It's like a little baby mouthful at a time. You're not going to just jump it at somebody. You've got to do it a little bit at a time. I will tell you, any relationship without respect is usually very toxic and very stressful energy. So if you are in a relationship that, if you feel like, if you don't say exactly the way you went to, I'm saying, to the store, like, I'm saying, if your partner comes in and says, what'd you do all day? And you're like, well, I got up at 6 and I did this and did this and did this, and you kind of forgot something. If you're stressed out about that, that's not a good relationship. It's one of those, does that make sense? It's kind of like you're kind of like giving them the respect of telling them about your day. But if anything's not the way they thought it should be, they're going to call you on it. That's not being respectful back to you. That's just kind of the way it goes. One of the secrets to understanding a partner's perspective is understanding what respect means to them. Because so many times people think like, oh, we have this mutual respect for each other. But a lot of times what they're saying is they're respecting me and I'm not respecting them. And so it's one of those, that's one of those great conversations to have when you first set up a relationship. What does respect mean to you? What does communication mean to you? What does setting boundaries mean to you? What does trust mean to you? And so that's kind of one of those energies that you really have to understand what that person is bringing into your relationship. Where is it coming out, and what does that mean for them? Because it's one of those, like I said, I grew up in a kind of a strange household, that sort of thing. Doesn't mean it was bad all the time. It just doesn't mean it was great. But a lot of times, like, people often will tell me, like, I was feeling this with my partner, I was feeling that with my partner, and then like they flipped and turned and that sort of thing. One of the other ones is my last one of my 5 pillars of a relationship is support. Having a supportive partner in a marriage can bring in like happiness, success, and absolutely an important part of like having someone who believes in you and kind of trusts you and like gives you that amazing energy back. Now, I will tell you, a lot of times, people want, there's one person that's more supportive in a relationship than another, but it shouldn't be way out of whack. It should be a little bit out of whack, but not completely out of whack. That's kind of like, no. We don't need to go there. We don't even need to handle it this way. And like I said, you want to kind of like give these over slowly. A lot of times when people get around like a good relationship and they've been in bad ones for a while, they're almost like running at that good relationship and not looking at it from a distance. Like, is this a healthy relationship for me? Is this a great relationship? So if y'all have any questions, suggestions, or ideas about my 5 pillars of a good relationship, while y'all are typing in your questions or whatever it is, I'm going to pull a couple of cards and kind of like give us a little bit further explanation on these 5 pillars of a great relationship. The first one is Jupiter. And I will tell you, this one's all about abundance. Jupiter is always about abundance. And so kind of the abundance part of this is that it has to stay in balance. When you give communication, you deserve communication back. When you give respect, you get respect back. So it has to be this balance of energy. And when you do, then it can go, the sky's the limit. There's no like, oh my gosh, I have to hold on to this, or I have to hold on to this one little part. It's one of those, nope, not necessary. Even the same way with trust. Trust should be given a little bit at a time, but it should come back in the same amount that you're giving it. So it always keeps it in balance and not out of balance for anything else. Actually, One of the things is I normally pull cards for myself when I'm getting ready for all of this. I actually pulled this card 4 times tonight. 4 times. I know. This is the sextile, and this is symbiotic or symbiosis. And I will tell you, that's kind of staying in balance. That's what we're talking about is, and I feel like this one is more talking about just the word trust. When you give trust, you need to get trust back, but it also has to be earned. And like I said, it's in these little bitty mouthfuls, these little bitty kind of like little things. It's not this major kind of energy of like, here, let me tell you every one of my secrets, and we're going to let it go with that. You have got to learn how to set boundaries with this, hold those boundaries, and then giving that trust a little bit at a time and not just like jumping at any person that comes in your relationship. Let's see, kind of my next one is progressions, and this is the journey. A relationship is a journey. A relationship is not something that's going to last 5 minutes or a week or something like that. Because if you're walking into a new relationship thinking that this relationship is going to last a few days or a few weeks or a few months, that's not giving you time to even learn how to set up these pillars. It's not even, you're not really getting good on communication yet. You're really not learning respect. You're not getting respect. You're not supporting each other. You're not trusting each other. There's no really good, healthy boundary set. So it's one of those, if you're kind of like, I need to get this set before this relationship ends, it's already ended. That thought right there, that's already ended that relationship. So it's kind of like, you were thinking it was not going well. Yeah. And now it's one of those, not because you were thinking it was bad. It's because that intuition in you was telling you this is not a good, healthy relationship for you. Okay. So the next card I'm pulling is retrograde. And this is all about reviewing. I will tell you that I have seen this with men, women to the umpteenth degree, that sometimes I just like get stressed out about it, because people go from one relationship to the next relationship to the next relationship, and they never get a chance to really review what happened. What happened with the last one? Why did it go bad? What was going on? And they just kind of literally jump into that next relationship over and over and over again. And it's not healthy. It's not good or anything else. It is just like crazy. So it's one of those, give yourself time in between. Thank you, Sandra. She's like, everything you're saying is true. So I would tell you, like, if you are going into a new relationship and you haven't done your review of what happened or what went wrong in the previous one, and I guarantee you, if you are in a relationship, I'm going to tell you the biggest secret in the whole wide world. Are you ready for this, guys? You ready? Every relationship you are in is an equal sign. What you put in is what you're going to get out. What they put in is what they're going to get out of that relationship. Every relationship is an equal sign. So if the relationship went bad, it's not 100% your fault, but there is a portion of the fault that goes to you. So not only do you need to look at what you did wrong and how things went bad, but you've also got to look at what they did and what they went wrong, and be willing to take your fair share of the responsibility. It's very, very important, is to make sure that you are doing that. And the only way you can do that is to take time. If you're already giddy about, oh, this relationship has ended and this one's coming in, it's one of those, no, it's not going to work out. So Jade is saying, if I am growing, then I will be, they will grow as well. That is, I think, kind of one of the biggest things is, so I'm a full-blown psychic. I could go to Psychic Anonymous. I am a psychic. And my partner, my husband, is not. And I will tell you, that's kind of one of the things we're going to get to next, but I'm going to explain this to you, is you have to have things that independently you like to do or that sort of thing. But I will guarantee you that my husband and I have enough similarities to make this marriage work. Does that make sense? Like, even though he doesn't meditate the way I do, or he doesn't deal with the public the way I do, or he doesn't do this, or doesn't talk to ghosts all day long like I do, kind of thing. It's one of those, we have a similarity enough in what we do, what we understand, and where we go in our life, that as I grow, he grows. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like what I do in my life is much different from my husband, but it's one of those, because we come together and we kind of have enough communication between us, lots of communication about all kinds of crazy things. It makes the marriage work. That's the important part. It's like it's growing, and so even if he's not understanding everything that I do in a day, it's one of those, he's learning enough from me or through my energy to kind of balance that out. Hopefully, Jay, that answered your question. So if you're growing, they will be growing as well. Maybe not at the same rate, but close enough where they're always going to be like one step behind you. So let me know, Jade, if that answered your question. My next card that I got is Virgos, and this is all about digesting. And I will tell you, this one comes in, like I said, a lot with the trust of kind of like one bite at a time, digesting the information that's coming in, trusting just enough to kind of be able to bring that energy into an amazing balance. She said, yes, thank you. Hello, Miss Iris. So that is a really good one. I'm going to pull one last card, and then we're going to kind of talk about some of the other kind of things that I think are really important. So this one is one of my favorite ones. This is the moon, and this is all about our perspective. Now, one of the things I will tell you, and you'll hear me say this in a lot of videos, is how you were raised or how your parents thought about something is the way you probably think about something. And it doesn't mean it's good or it's bad or anything else, but if your parents had bad communication, then you're more likely to have bad communication with someone else. So that's something you're going to have to work on. Just the way it is. If someone else's parents got into a relationship, so partner A had great communication with their parents had great communication with each other, and they got into a relationship with partner B, and partner B had bad communication growing up, had bad communication with their parents. When they get together, it doesn't mean that it's horrible. They have to now figure out how to communicate. It doesn't mean it's bad, but that comes in from their perspective of how they were raised. One of them is like, I thought communication was easy because I grew up in a family that we talked about everything, and we did this and we did that sort of thing. Well, the other one didn't grow up in a family like that. Everybody has like a different way of growing up. Even siblings have like how they deal with their parents. Your parents, if you have siblings, your parents were different with each set of siblings that there were. If that's 2 kids, great. If there were 4 kids, that's great. There's 20 kids. Those parents were at a different part in their relationship every time they had kids. And so that child is going to learn a little bit differently about relationships compared to what the parents are going through at the time. Does that make sense? I really want to talk about this, and we have a little bit of time left, but if y'all have any questions, definitely make sure that you ask them about relationships, not anything personal, but about relationships. I will do later on in June, I will do a question night, so y'all can ask me like one question on live. So we'll see how that one, when that comes out. So kind of one of the things that I will tell you is probably the most next important thing to understand in relationships. So we've gone through the 5 pillars. Now, the next most important thing is be independent. So many times when someone gets into a relationship, they let everything else go by the wayside. Oh my gosh. Well, the person I am in a relationship doesn't like bowling, even though I love bowling. He doesn't like bowling. We're not going to go. No, you must hear the words. You must have your own independent friends, your own independent things that you love to do, your own kind of thing that you love. And it doesn't matter. And it doesn't mean like you're doing it behind their back. They should know. It's one of those, not only my husband, but many other husbands, we call it male bonding night. And so my husband, best friend passed away a couple of years ago, but prior to that, they would go and have dinner out like once or twice a month. They had things that they loved doing. It's kind of like who you are in the relationship. What do you love in the relationship? Now, if your partner's opposed to it, that's not going to work out. But it's one of those, like, if they're kind of like, I don't really care for bowling, but if you want to go do it, you can. You should still keep up with those friends. Or if you like movie night, I don't like going to the movies in the movie place, the movie house, whatever y'all call it here. But it's like, I don't really care for that. But I will tell you, it's kind of the best part is, it's one of those, when we have an absence, when that person is doing something else, like, hey, I've got a business meeting tonight, or I'm going to go see a movie with a friend, or I'm going to go have dinner with my friend that does this or whatever else. Usually for me, it's sushi night. So I just love sushi. But it's one of those, that absence, that distance away from my husband for a period of time makes our relationship stronger. And it gives us something to talk about, kind of like weird. It kind of like, now we have something to chat about or talk about or whatever else. Or if he's got something with a friend of his or whatever it is, like, it gives us that time to do something that we love. I will say it's not every night, it's once in a while. And, or, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it gives us an opportunity to kind of disconnect from each other and kind of have that like relaxing time. Sandra's asking, so true. I will tell you, that's kind of the important part. It's kind of like, what are you bringing into the relationship? What is the energy that you're bringing into? And even if your husband or spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend, it's one of those, it's a great time to kind of like have a spiritual side, do things with other friends, other family members, it could be, but knowing that that's the important part. The connection outside of it with other people is going to actually make your relationship stronger, and not, there's like a mosquito in here. He's going to eat me alive. So it's kind of like, that's kind of the interesting part. When you have your own independent life, I know, there he is. He's like, I hate mosquitoes. I hate mosquitoes. When you have your own independent life, it adds so much energy to your relationship, because that's who you are and what you love to do. And it's kind of like you have your time away, or your own personal life, to an extent, not 100%, but you have that a little bit of an extent, away from your partner or that sort of thing. So it's kind of like, yeah, you get your time away, you get your time alone, you kind of get your energy out there. That's the really fun, cool part, is that you really get to be who you are, have your friends, your family to do things with. That, I will tell you, that's kind of the main energy that we kind of deal with in most relationships. So let me pull a couple of more angel cards. We've got just like a little bit longer. Unless someone's got a question, I will take questions. This one is the one that's popping up next. The card I pulled out is Midhaven, and this is the Pentacle. I will tell you, your relationship that you have with your friends and your family, things that you do outside of being with your spouse or your partner or whatever it is probably the kind of like the best part about it. It's kind of like your time away, your friends, your family, that sort of thing. And it kind of brings it into kind of an amazing energy of like time away. Now, Ray is asking, how do you deal with a partner that isn't comfortable with that type of being away? This is a great question. That goes back to our 5 pillars. There must be something in their past that is not allowing them to trust you to leave, unless you have already cheated or already like shown that you're not trustworthy. They should be able to give you that trust. And I would say, invite them to come along for a period of time, and then say, okay, now you've been along a couple of times when we've done this adventure or that adventure, and now it's our guy time to yell at the football screen or whatever else, or it's our time to go bowling, or it's our time to go see whatever it is. But making sure that they're comfortable with what's going on, so there's that mutual respect and trust. And then also unpacking, like, why are they not giving you that trust? A lot of times people cannot give trust because they have given their trust in the past and they got slapped in the face with it. So it's one of those, they gave someone trust and that person cheated on them, or they gave that person trust and they used it against them in some way, shape, or form. And so that's what we're talking about. So it's one of those, like, that's a really great thing to have a communication talk about. Like, Why are you uncomfortable with this? What is the energy in all of this? And if it's something from the past, then say, what can I do, or what can we do together to bring this to a healed state? What is going to make you feel comfortable for me to go and do this? I grew up with a longtime boyfriend in high school, and he went hunting a lot. When it was in season, he was a deer hunter, and he went all the time. And at some point, you just have to trust somebody until they prove to you that you can't trust them. That's kind of the special part about it. I was lucky enough that I had never had anybody cheat on me at the time. He never cheated on me. He was a very sweet, very amazing guy. And that was kind of the fun part. Like, I didn't have that history coming into that relationship, and neither did he. And we always talked about where he went, what was he doing, how long was he out there, all that kind of stuff. And this is before cell phones, before you can kind of ping where that person is. Now you can be like, I know exactly where they are. That's kind of the interesting part. So just know that this is something to work on. A relationship is something that you are going to work on, not full-time, but you're always going to be working. It's always going to be like a part-time job. There's always going to be something to fix or mend or communicate about or work on. It's just the way it goes. I thank y'all so much for joining me tonight. I have a whole bunch of stuff coming up. I'm going to run my video again for YouTube, Instagram, and I think it's Twitter tonight. But I will be posting this on Instagram later. Thank y'all so much tonight. I love you guys. I'll see you soon.